say be happy with what you got.
You be happy. Me, I want what's coming to me.
Oh, well, what's coming to you, Tony?
The world, Chico. And everything in it.
Tony Montana is the embodiment of pure hunger and ambition. His drive made him go from a dishwasher to the biggest drug lord in Miami. However, his sudden rise to the top and his dramatic fall uncover the true meaning and message behind this legendary film. Welcome back to Shade Cinema. My name is Chris, and today's video will analyze Tony Montana's rise and fall and how ambition empowered the drug kingpin, but also how it ultimately led to his downfall. Tony arrives in Miami as a refugee after being locked in a Cuban jail for years. His imprisonment fuels a great deal of ambition in him. He begins his time in the States working as a dishwasher. He absolutely despises this life, a life of insignificance. A menial job or being imprisoned doesn't allow Tony to fulfill his desire for power. And by power, I mean real, tangible power. He finds out through a contact that an ex-Cuban Communist Party member is in the same refugee camp as him, and that by disposing of him, he can have a shot at the criminal underworld of Miami. To Tony, killing communists is fun because communists didn't allow Tony to fulfill that ever-hungry ambition. Afterwards, he's hired to do a simple cash job of exchanging nose candy, which goes sideways. It's during this job that Tony Montana shows two of his main traits. He doesn't beat around the bush with his words, and he has absolute balls of steel. His boldness and his ambition make him rise through the ranks of Frank Lopez's empire very quickly, and Frank sees someone like Tony as a very valuable asset, someone who is not afraid to get his hands dirty if need be. His bold ambition makes him magnetic to others, who look for Tony when big moves need to be made, and who not only respect him, but fear him at the same time. But his unending ambition also makes him unable to ever be content with where he is, and that becomes more and more apparent as Tony begins to defy Frank and his cautious stability. So Tony at this point is a part of Frank Lopez's criminal empire, but Frank and Tony are very different in the way they operate. Tony wants more and more and more. Frank, on the other hand, is satisfied with the stable, under-the-radar empire that he has built. Frank makes sure that he doesn't overextend himself so that his empire can last a long time. Tony sees this as Frank being soft and begins to make deals on his own, like with Sosa. Frank is angry about the deal because A, Tony didn't clear the deal with Frank, and B, it's not a deal that Frank is comfortable with. The longer Tony works for Frank, the clearer it becomes that his ambition won't let him stay a subordinate. Frank realizes it too and tries to have him killed, but Tony survives. With a gun to Frank's head, Tony watches him beg for his life. To Tony, begging confirms Frank's cowardice, and he has no respect for cowards. After Frank's death, Tony takes his empire and his woman, essentially stealing the life he always wanted. In the end, Tony was always destined to outgrow Frank. Frank's cautious strategy kept him from ever reaching the top. But Tony, now in control, is ready to unleash his ambition and become the drug kingpin he always believed he was meant to be. At this point, Tony achieves it all. He has all the money he could ever need, a beautiful mansion fit for a drug lord, Elvira, the most beautiful woman in his eyes, and real tangible power. His ambition is now realized, but does it really fulfill him? It would normally fulfill any person, but in Tony it created a sense of emptiness. His ambition and his achieving of power were what fulfilled him, and without those driving factors, Tony could end up being hollow. Instead, he strives for more and more as he always has, because achieving more is what really fulfills Tony. He is utterly incapable of enjoying what he currently has. Sure, the glamour, money, and excess are fun for a while, but soon after, he gets bored with it all and just tries to expand his business because it's what gives him the thrills. However, his success and ever-growing empire caused Tony to become restless and paranoid. It doesn't help that he was coked out all the time either. All of these factors play into Tony's relationships with the people closest to him, as Tony's desire for control and his overall suspicion begin to isolate him completely. Now that Tony has established a successful drug empire, he begins to assert his control over things, not just in the matter of business, but in his personal life too. But the way he takes control begins to alienate those around him. Elvira, for instance, is constantly belittled by Tony, and Tony makes comments that imply that she's useless, has no hobbies, has no friends, and that
her womb is so polluted. I can't even have a fucking little baby with her.
Even if Tony really believes those things about Elvira, as a husband, his job is not to bring her down but to build her up. Then again, Tony sees Elvira more as a trophy wife than anything. He values the status that she brings with her being with him, the drug lord with the beautiful wife. At the restaurant, she snaps because she hates the chaotic life that the drug money has brought them. She leaves Tony, and he's now without a wife, and without a person who's supposed to be there for emotional support. Then there's Gina. Tony smothers Gina, refusing to let her live freely. He becomes very overbearing on her, likely stemming from his relationship with his mom, who despises him for what he is. That relationship makes Tony cling and protect the only family that hasn't disowned him, which is his baby sister Gina. And although he does things for her like give her money and open her salon for her, she isn't given the legroom to move on her own, almost like Tony is trying to make her his puppet. Tony also forbids her from seeing any man that she wants to be with, because Tony doesn't want to lose her to someone else. But this leads to a conflict with Tony's closest friend, Manny. Manny is Tony's best friend. They broke into the industry together, they built the empire together. But after a while, Tony's ego and ambition for dominance begin to affect their relationship. He treats Manny as a junior partner, and Manny begins to see him more and more as an asshole. Manny is also not as ambitious as Tony, wherein Manny wants to slow down expansion and maintain more of the status quo. And Tony wants more than what he has, and, as we've seen, Tony has little respect for those who believe that they have enough. Then one night, while Tony was looking for Gina, he found her sharing a house with Manny. Tony, in a coke-induced jealous rage, kills Manny. He would not allow any man, not even his best friend, to touch his sister. Manny did violate bro code though, so tell me if he deserved it or not in the comments section down below. His unchecked ambition manifested itself as paranoia and domination, which, over time, alienates his allies. His empire is big, but his circle is empty. His ego and overconfidence begin to turn against him, as his relationship with his business partners takes a sharp turn. So there's this major whistleblower who's coming out and talking about the cartels to the UN, and he's causing trouble for Sosa and his business partners. Tony is tasked by Sosa to drive his assassin and eliminate the whistleblower on his way to the UN by blowing up his car. However, the whistleblower has his family in the car, which includes his children. Tony refuses to go with the plan and kills the assassin before he detonates the bomb. If there's one thing that Tony refuses to do, it's eliminate women and children. This can be seen as his morality stepping in and refusing to commit such a heinous crime. Or maybe it's Tony's ego not allowing him to compromise his vision of how power should work. Either way, this angers Sosa greatly, who breaks off their business arrangement and starts gunning for Tony. And even though Tony has now alienated his most important allies, his ambition and his ego make him believe he's invincible. So it's almost like he's daring them to come to him. This whole sequence in the film also shows us that his ambition demands that he set the rules, even when it's a self-deleting endeavor. His ambition and his ego have made him rigid, to the point where he won't bend on the slightest thing, even if it means that he would survive an ordeal and be okay in the end of it. Sosa sends his troops to Tony's mansion, where in a rainstorm of bullets and bombs, Tony Montana finally meets his end. The mansion invasion. This scene is probably the most famous scene in the film for its brutal action and last stand, but there's nuance underneath the violence. It is the collapse of Tony's restless ambition, the moment his ego finally turns against him. Due to the alienation of his allies, his security is stripped to the bare minimum on the eve of the battle. And although he puts up a good fight, showing how tough he really is, he dies alone, surrounded by the luxury he chased and consumed by his enemies. His ambition and his ego led him to self-destruction. Ambition without boundaries, like the one that Tony had, doesn't just plateau, it burns until it destroys. It's like a star. The brighter it burns, the shorter its life will be. And Tony did definitely burn bright. He lived life in the fast lane, but he drove so fast that the end came very quickly with a massive bang. But ultimately, what's the main takeaway that we can take from a film like Scarface? What's the lesson that we can all learn from this? It's easy to see Scarface as just another gangster movie, but it's much deeper than that. It's a cautionary tale about ambition, both its benefits and its consequences. Ambition can empower people to achieve great things, and it can drive them to reach heights they otherwise would never have been able to reach. But ambition without limits can consume a person until they become a shell of what they used to be. Scarface resonates with people decades later because Tony Montana represents something universal: the danger of never knowing when enough is enough. So when you achieve your allotted ambitions in life, always remember to look around you and see what you've achieved. Ground yourself in the world that you've built, instead of endlessly chasing a world that could be. I get it, it's fun to conquer, but great empires don't stay around for long periods of time through endless conquests, but through the consolidation of what they already have. So build your kingdom, but don't lose sight of who you really are, or else you'll end up like Tony, surrounded by wealth, but alone and miserable until the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts. I read and reply to every comment. I've established a new upload schedule, so expect a new video to be dropped every week. If you would like to see the Dark Knight's Joker and how he's not actually crazy, click the link on the right side of the screen.